I want to share with you some ways to use ChatGPT and artificial intelligence to assist you in developing some quality lessons for poetry and for Edgar Allan Poe lessons. So, ChatGPT is artificial intelligence, and think of it as a personal assistant, and it'll create what you want. So, what are some activities I wrote that will help my students understand tone and mood? And let me say, as a expert middle school teacher, and I'm going to ask it to brainstorm because you want to tell it what type of output you want. You tell it who it is thinking as. Brainstorm some lessons and activities that will help my students to understand tone and mood in the Raven. And you'll notice that it'll create some different ideas. And let's say we want to do something like artistic interpretations, right? So I'll say, create a lesson where students do an artistic artistic interpretation of the Raven, but also demonstrate an understanding of its tone and mood. I want them to cite evidence in their product. But I don't want them just to create a picture of a raven. I want them to include quotes and include an understanding. And it'll create a little lesson that you can follow or adjust or however you want. Um, and you can say, give me something again, but use more evidence in it, right? Use more, um, use some tone words. What if I say, create a lesson for the Raven using the soapstone strategy? Let's see if it knows that. Make the lesson so that students work in small groups. Soapstone. Students with Raven. Group. Questions. Doesn't. Okay, to highlight speaker, occasion, purpose, subject, tone. It does know it. Okay. Um, and I could even say create an organizer. Well, let me see. I have some other questions. I might want to do a question like this one. Um, Before I teach the class, I want to pre-teach some vocabulary, but I don't want to have to go through it. So I can say, create a list of challenging words in the Ravens with definitions I can give my students. So it'll go ahead and create this list that you can just hand to them ahead of time. And you could actually make this maybe a vocabulary test. Now, some of these words kids don't need too much of, right? But some of them are pretty good. Words like dirge and surcease, ponder, things like that are words that they should know. Placid, great word there. So you could give this to them and then have an assessment on it and pre teach some of these words. Another thing you can do with AI is I could say, I'm teaching the poem Annabel Lee, right? And I can say to the AI, I am teaching the poem Annabel Lee. What are some activities and tasks I can use to help them engage in a close reading of the poem that will help them? So maybe you didn't like Soapstone, and that's not helpful. It'll give you some ideas here. Each one with a copy of the poem encourage them to annotate as they read. Words phrases that stand out to them. Not too bad. Discuss the characters in the poem. Encourage students to analyze their characters, the nature of their love. Characters or monologues from the perspective of Annabel Lee or the narrator. So what if I do want to do theme exploration? I might say, what are some more specific ways I can have them explore the theme? Like, I can ask it to be more specific if I like what it says. I can then have it generate more specific ideas. And you'll get this in the email that you currently opened. These could be small group projects that different groups do. These could be stations that you could create that students have to rotate through. Maybe they have 30 minutes in each station to create something. Or maybe that is you just choose one of these. And then say I really like character letters. I can say, create a lesson for the character letters. And again, you don't have to follow what it says, but it just gives you some ideas. And it gives you something that, a way to think about how you want to structure the lesson. You still have to be the teacher and think about how you want to do it, but it's an idea assistant. Let's say I also want it to I want to do some group activities that engage them in reading. Okay, of a poem, but I want it to be fun. Here, so I'm asking kind of the same question. What are some group activities I can give students that will engage them in reading poem? And I want to say in groups and breaking down in creative. It doesn't care about your spelling. It doesn't care about even if the things go together. And it's just gonna, I just wanted them to really put together some different ideas. And now escape room activity is interesting. So what if I said, create the poetry escape room? That's fascinating. What would that look like? Is it really going to create each of them? So for each of these, what I'd have to do probably is I might have to ask it to help me with this. When I say ask it to help me with it, what I mean is for some of these things up here, and it'll say create a cipher or code that students must decode to reveal a clue. I might say create the cipher for a poem. Right. It's a lot. So this one might be a bit much to put together, but it could work if you had a lot of time. But this would definitely help you if this was something you were passionate about doing, and it would help put it together. The escape room might be a little more than we want to get into. A poetic collage. Provide them with copies of the poem. Ask them to create a visual collage that represents the mood, themes, and imagery. Okay? So I could say create the instructions step by step for the collage. Now it's breaking down what that would be. And they have to, this might be a poem that you haven't read together. Um, and then let's just say that I want to do an assessment. So we've done all this Poe work, looking at tone and mood in Poe. So I can say create some multiple choice and short answer assessment questions about mood and tone on poems that are not poems written by Poe, are not The Raven and Annabel Lee. Will it do that? It just might. Yeah. So you could just choose one poem. You could say make them all about El Dorado. Make them all about to Helen and El Dorado. And that could be your test, right? Because you want to give them an assessment at the end of this that looks like what they're going to have to do on a state test. So these are just some ideas for ways for you to extend the learning and assess the learning for an Edgar Allan Poe reading experience. ChatGPT is free, so let me know if you have any questions.